Welcome to the Future Print and Pack Summit. I'm delighted to be joined today by Taylor Buckthorpe, who is Director of Sales at Colordyne Technologies. Welcome, Taylor.
Hi, Marcus. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And thank you for joining us. Whereabouts are you kind of dialing in from? Where in the world are you?
I'm at the Colordyne office here in Brookfield, Wisconsin this week.
Okay, so you're kind of a few miles away from where we are. So that's the beauty of virtual. We can be wherever we are in the world and still participate. So that's great. So you've actually spoken at one of our events before. Colordyne have had a pretty key participation in all of our events. So we're looking forward to this next session, which obviously has a focus on labels and packaging. The title of this session is called Hybrid Printing for Labels and Packaging. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail with hybrid, what that means, and so on and so forth. And I guess as well as anything else, it gives us the opportunity about inks and formulations and format and so on. So just really to kind of set the scene, I suppose, I think we all have a kind of an interpretation of what hybrid means. It's a term we use we apply it to cars and different formats and so on with technology. But could you explain a bit about what hybrid means for printing?
Yeah, I think hybrid printing in our industry is a big buzzword. I think I have a different view on it than some, but I think at its core, leveraging both analog and digital printing technologies in a single pass is what should be considered hybrid printing. That could be as simple as adding a barcode in line with a fully analog press, or it could be as complex of registering flexographic or offset printing plates with a digitally printed image. One thing that I like to say is I do not consider a digital printer with inline finishing hybrid printing. I just consider that digital printing with inline converting. And I know some of my partners or competitors in the industry like to view, digital printing with converting as hybrid, whereas here at Colordyne, we do not.
Right. Okay. So it's important to know the difference, really, isn't it? And I think that often buzzwords are misinterpreted, and it has become a buzzword, even though it is a useful one. Colordyne really, I guess, specializes, from what I understand, in producing conventional or making conventional presses into hybrid presses. And I guess the other word that's used often is retrofit. So often you do this as a retrofit to analog equipment. What are the benefits of this configuration for print and packaging converters?
Sure. Let me pull up just a quick graphic that kind of simply shows what we're doing here. And this is where we're taking an existing flexo press or offset press and dropping the digital technology on top of that machine. So we're integrating directly onto the customer's asset. So at Colordyne, we have a variety of ink and printhead technologies that are designed to be used in conjunction with these flexo presses or offset presses. And what we're doing is making up for what a lot of companies said couldn't be done in the past. I used to go to these trade shows and I'd hear digital companies saying, it's got to be a standalone, got to, bring in the new asset. We need the precision web handling. And here we are a couple of years later, and inkjet from a variety of manufacturers is being integrated into third-party solutions or retrofitting, which is what we like to call it. And I think when you're a small to medium-sized converter, or really any business, you're managing really three things: people, facility, and cash. And when you look at our solution, it really addresses many of those challenges that converters are faced with. Many converters have an aging workforce, and a shortage in skilled trade is happening in this industry. So our solution really offers companies to leverage the capital investments they've made in their business, as well as bringing in a technology that can kind of bridge the gap between an older operator that may be more geared towards analog and a younger operator that's looking more towards a digital solution. And then our solutions really, echo the same standard digital benefits of reducing setup time and producing cost-effective short-run work.
Okay. So you also offer both kind of water-based as well as UV inkjet modules. What are the advantages or the pros and cons of both in a kind of hybrid press configuration?
Definitely. I'll bring up another graphic here just to kind of show the three different engine technologies we develop around. And if you look at that graphic there on the left, you have our Chromaplex ALT technology. That is a Duraflex-based technology using the memjet technology. It's water-based pigment. In the center there, we have our Chromaplex AP, that as well as a memjet Duralink technology, that is also a water-based pigment. And then we have our Chromaplex UV, which is our UV LED technology using Kyocera print heads. I try not to frame in advantages and disadvantages for each and every customer. It's more so what's the right technology for the applications they're looking at. From a very high level, water-based technology works best for very highly focused, high volume digital applications that require high speeds. Or you can look at our UV LED technology and really say it does a great job at approaching a wide range of production. So really, that's where I like to steer customers is if you have a niche high volume application, we can probably target that with the water-based, or if you're looking for a technology that allows you to approach a lot of things, that's where UV LED jet comes in handy.
Okay, thank you. And so what kind of jobs are really sort of best or work best on a hybrid press? What kind of jobs?
Sure. While I'm talking here, I'll have a video come up and play in the background. And the customer here is one of my partners down in Jacksonville, Florida, G2ID. They produce a lot of frozen seafood and meat labels where there's lots of artwork changeover. Every time they go and harvest these foods, they got to change some sort of information on that label. So they're constantly getting new artwork from their customers. So, the cost of producing plates is something that they don't want to continue to reinvest in. And then they also have typically a lot of plate changes, lots of versioning, lots of last minute artwork changes. And the image you're seeing running in the video is a 7 to 8 color flexo job. And this is being produced hybrid, where instead of changing 4 plates for every SKU, now they're only changing 1 plate per SKU change, and the digital is picking up all of that work of setup and artwork changeover because it can do it much more efficiently. So in this example, this is the type of work where there's a high volume of high mix, multi-version work that can be easily chained together and ran and reduce the setup time on press.
Good. In the hybrid examples that you've described there, what are the color management challenges or indeed the opportunities in mixing flexo and digital print in the same press line?
Sure. And I have another example, and this one ties to that previous video I showed. When you look at the label that was produced, as I mentioned, it was around a 7 or 8 color job. And what our customer kind of worked with here is determining the way to best separate what was going to be produced digitally and what was going to be produced flexigraphically. So in this example, they leveraged the flexo to produce metallic colors in heavy coverage areas. And that does 2 things. Metallic colors are out of gamut for the digital device, and the heavy coverage areas, that's expensive to produce. So they shifted those to analog. And the digital is used for the 4 color process work that's highly variable. And in this example, they're really reducing the amount of plates, the cleaning and storing, and the throwaway waste. And really, when you look at what the challenges were, there was some work here for the customers to dial this type of process in, but once they figured this out, they were really able to hit the ground running and apply this to multiple other jobs in their portfolio.
Are there sort of issues with, it's obviously the creation of ink for flexo is very well established, but inkjet's still a relatively young technology. Are there any compatibility issues between inkjet and flexo inks?
There definitely can be. If you look at our water-based technology, those inks definitely require a certain surface energy, and that can play a part into mixing the 2 technologies together. Our UV LED, which is more of a technology that prints on top, that lends itself a lot better to a hybrid printing type of application. But really where we excel is we have an open relationship with our customers and our ink manufacturer. So adjustments can be made if needed. And a lot of our customers, what they're going to need to do if they want to explore the topic of hybrid is trials and testing internally. There's a wide variety of analog inks out there that can be leveraged, and you may need to adjust your flexo plates, manipulating traps, etc., things like that to just fine tune to perfect the label. And then from there, you establish that standard of practice and apply to further production processes in your business.
Mm-hmm. With hybrid printing processes, what happens to the traditional crossover point, between digital and flexo? It's always that kind of like, that at that point you will do digital. What happens to that crossover point? Is it different?
In some ways, it's eliminated. In that example, I showed the customer is pushing the really heavy digital cost to an analog plate. So, when you take out 30% of your digital costs and drop that into flexo ink costs, that's going to significantly extend that crossover point, we call it. I have customers that are doing 50,000, 60,000 linear feet on a press run because they've looked at the analog setup costs, the digital cost of production in regards to ink and printhead costs, and they're finding what allows them to really tweak and adjust, ultimately have lower setup time and a lower cost of production.
Obviously speed's important, right? So what kind of speeds can typically be obtained with a hybrid configuration? It'd be interesting to know if that's what's different.
Sure. A majority of our narrow web label converters are in that 200 to 300 feet per minute, really matching well to what you see in the narrow web flexo space. If someone's using a Mark Handy 2200, they're in that 200 to 300 feet per minute range if they're doing process color work. And then we have wider web applications, and we have technology that can reach upwards of 600 feet per minute. So for our commercial printers or people in envelope printing, document printing, where they just need to crank out pages or envelopes, we have technology that really allows us to get near those high-end analog speeds that could be well over 500 feet per minute. And then there's a lot of push in this industry to go wider and even faster than where the inkjet technology is today. And that's where we have our R&D team here at Colordyne constantly looking at what the technology can do today and what we can do to it to build solutions for what customers are looking for tomorrow.
Interesting. What's a standard or common retrofit? What's it look like for you and for your business, really? And what types of presses tend to be the ones you work more on? How many stations? And what's a typical hybrid press look like, I guess, for you?
Sure. I'll pull up a couple of pictures here as I talk, and we'll click through them. But at its core, in our narrow web label business, we see a lot of 10-inch and 13-inch flexo presses. Those could be Mark Handy 2200s, Aguaflex, Allied Gears, Nil Peters, Profiteers. Those could be line shaft driven or servo. We've seen it all, from new presses to old. The big thing is customers can take advantage of that existing asset. Majority of our customers are at least putting the 4-color process digital engine technology onto a 4-color process flexo press with at least 4 stations. And that's so they can have some sort of printing capability before the digital print engine, and then also after the digital engine for any sort of post-process overprint varnish or additional spot colors. Some of my customers have put a retrofit engine on a 10-color flexo press. And when you look at that example, they were able to keep their capital investment very low and just invest in our engine and put our 4 or 5 color process engine technology onto a 10-color flexo press. And that right there is such a win for them if they were to go and compare that to a new offering from any of my competitors, where they'd be paying for that 10-color flexo press on top of the digital printing technology. We even have some examples where we have 2 engines on one press doing front and back variable data color. And then in the commercial print space, we see a lot of customers retrofitting old Ditty presses, some W&D converting envelope printing equipment. And then We also see some customers who really want to get into those wide widths beyond 25 inches. And those are, can be anything from a wide web offset press or even a film packaging press.
So it's quite varied. So what other value added decoration options does hybrid or the hybrid format provide? For example, cold foil, embossing, screen?
Yeah, when I look at our customers, the value-added decoration is really up to them of what they can bring in line onto that flexo press. I often call like a flexo press is like a Swiss Army knife. It's very easy to add modules, whether that be cold foiling, some sort of embellishment module, and that can all be added in line. And then on top of that, any of the dies, tooling that they have in their business, they can use and reinvest those assets onto this production machine. So it allows for a lot of flexibility. We're starting to see some offerings in this industry of, digital spot varnish, also has like a digital metallic solutions as well. So as those technologies mature, that's technology that can be brought in line to this existing asset as well.
Interesting. And how important, I suppose, are quick change conventional print and converting units to a hybrid press? Yeah.
It becomes very important because ultimately this is your digital setup time or your hybrid setup time. So having the ability to quickly change out a flexo station is important. If you want to take advantage of the quick setup times, the ability to quickly go from artwork to artwork that digital brings, you kind of got to have that same quick changeover ability on your flexo process as well to really take advantage of the ability to produce hybrid or digital work. And then we also have software that works for some customers who have business where they may just be doing high volume work that's all going to the same die or finishing capabilities. It's very true in our commercial print business where people are doing forms and documents, or I have a customer that does a lot of tire labels. And for that customer, all of their work goes to the same die format. So they're able to schedule all of their production using our software and really just hit print at the beginning of the shift. And that machine is just chewing through production, and they have turret unwinds and rewinds on this machine. So, that press is running all day, every day for them. So their ability to, automate the unwind and rewind for them was really the advantage to cutting out waste and setup time in their application.
Yeah, it's about sort of adding that kind of flexibility and responsiveness, isn't it? That is really important to get the value from inkjet. This brings us on to control. So in terms of control, does the hybrid press function, does it form, does it work from a single control panel, or are there separate control panels for digital and conventional print converting units? How important is a sort of single operating system?
Sure. So our retrofits are typically synchronized to the flexo press. So we're operating based off of the flexo press. So we're not controlling that flexo press in any way. We're really reacting to what's going on press. And each system is controlled from their respective user interface panels. Because we're coming in third party, we typically don't like to get into that existing assets, electronics, or communication capabilities. So what we'll do is we'll put a user interface screen located on our engine, and some customers will elect to put two screens so they can put that second screen closer towards the rewind of the press so they can control, the digital system, which once you queue up your artwork, you're really not going to have to be going back to that screen while the press is in production. And you're mainly going to be controlling the production off of the existing flexo press or web press control system that's already there, ramping up speed, stopping the press. That's all done with that existing asset. And our digital engine will, stop and start based on what it's reading from the web and what's going on in production.
Yeah. So it's not really disruptive. It's very complementary by the sounds of it. It works. It cohabits, if you like. Yeah. What other developments do you see in hybrid print, press technology in the future? Because I guess hybrid's a word that's really come out in the last few years. Going forward, do you see a time where it's more and more integration, or do you see a time where it's all going to be digital?
Yeah, I think, when I first came into the industry 10 years ago, I can visually remember this. I walked into Label Expo and there was this digital versus flexo panel, and they had all the big names in the industry, talking down on the other technologies. All the digital people were saying flexo is going to be gone in 10 years, and all the flexo people were saying digital is going to be gone in 10 years. And here we are 10 years later, and all those companies up on stage are like this. They're all offering some sort of joint solution, or they're offering digital, hybrid, both. So I think we're seeing the industry trend towards obviously what the customers need. And they're looking for a printing technology that provides them quick setup time, low cost of production, and the ability to approach a wide range of jobs. And I think that's what hybrid really brings. It really helps those converters, control their production costs. And I think as we look towards the future, it's going to become more and more capable, because we're going to see things like metallic inkjet embellishments or digital overprint varnishes, so you can get tactile feel, raise and lift out of an image, or even textures being applied to images like rough or soft touch. Graphics in motion is another thing that I've seen recently. There's some companies out in this industry now that are doing movement in images without putting lenticular lenses on top. And I really think, all of that lends itself towards hybrid print production, because that's going to be really, I think, the foundation for printing and converting as we look towards the future. I think the only thing that would really push to an all digital workflow would be the reduction of ink costs. That seems to be the main thing that kind of holds inkjet back from taking over. It's just the digital cost of production and those ink costs being a little bit higher than analog production. But if we continue to see volumes go up in the inkjet side, that crossover run length is going to continue to be pushed. And then we may see in the future less and less analog production being used for these type of jobs.
Excellent. And really, if I'm a converter or a printer and I have flexo equipment, but I am starting to realize through necessity as much as anything else that I do need inkjet, how do I go about contacting you? What's the process? And do you, how would you work to help me with inkjet?
Sure. Our website is always a great place for information and additional resources on our technology. Getting in touch with myself or anyone on the Colordyne sales team about, really learning what our technology can do for your specific business. There are cases of applications where digital doesn't make sense. And we're the type of company where we're not going to, really speak outside of what the technology can do. I'm a big believer in the round peg, round hole approach, where we really like to make sure the application is a good fit before we invest in the technology with the customer.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us again, Taylor.
Likewise.
If people want to get in contact with you, you have a speaker entry on the website. What's the web address?
Colordyne, I always get it wrong. So I believe it's colordynetech.com.
Yeah.
And we have colordyneinkjet.com as well.
Yeah.
And then you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn, or if you ever see me at any of the industry events, once they start getting back in person, please stop by and say hello.
Brilliant stuff. So thanks so much. Very interesting. All about hybrid. I learned some stuff there. So yeah, good luck with continuing to build that technology into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.